Boom! What's good? It's your boy King Hoodie, and we're back. We're gonna jump right into this one. It's gonna be amazing. This one is about music and audio learning. Obviously, I'm biased about this one because I make music, so this is gonna be a fun section for me just to talk about because it fascinates me, and I really enjoy doing the research for this one. So here we go. Music started in the beginning of time. Early civilizations from before the dawn of any written word or spoken language, people were making music. Early civilizations were using bones as flutes. They were beating on, hard surfaces with anything they could find, sticks, their own hands. Think about it from like even childhood. You see babies that just beat. So we've been making noises since we've been created from the beginning of time. Eventually, the tribes ended up creating certain sounds that symbolize certain things, whether they were mimicking an animal that was like in their surroundings or whatever the case may be. But they started making music essentially, chanting, jumping around, beating on drums for ritualistic and spiritual purposes, like indigenous people going in circles, beating on drums and just making these sounds. Once civilization advanced past the tribe mentality with the early humans making the music that they were making at the time, it went into, like, for example, the Greeks. Pythagoras, the same guy who made the Pythagorean theorem, he was a mathematician but also a musician, and he actually laid the foundation for what we know now to be music theory. Pythagoras was apparently that boy when it comes down to it. He was dropping math and he was dropping music, and he actually created a system for understanding and discovering the correlation between math and music, which is really interesting, like how to get from an octave to a fourth to a fifth. Like he really was interesting. And then after that, the Roman Church had something called the Gregorian chant. Gregorian chanting, which I just recently discovered doing research for this video specifically, is actually pretty fire. I'm gonna link a little video right here so you could actually listen to some of this Gregorian chanting. I Googled it. I said, what is Gregorian chanting? And it gave me this video, and I thought I was gonna listen to a minute of it. I ended up listening to 30 minutes of it because I thought it was fire. And while I was listening to 30 minutes of it in the middle of the research I was doing for this video, I actually ended up in a meditative state. I'll be real with you. It just caught me by surprise, but I was listening to the Gregorian chants and I was like, this is pretty fire. But as I was listening to it, I felt my heart rate go down. I felt like calmness kind of come over me. And I don't know if it's actually the music, right, that has an actual effect on the body and the brain and the spirit, or I don't know if my mind is naturally just listening to this and assuming what I think this music is doing to me and making it happen. For example, if I hear meditation music, I don't know if it automatically puts me in a meditative state because the music is just that raw and it just does it because we're all frequency. Sound frequency is a frequency and it can interact with the frequency that makes us up. Or I don't know if it's like, okay, I'm hearing meditation music, so now I'm thinking that meditation is required because I'm in this meditative state of mind and because I hear this music, so let me just go with the flow. Like, I don't know if it's actually the music that's like overtaking our body or if we're deciding to do that thing because we're in an environment that it's allowed. I don't know, but when I did listen to that Gregorian chanting, I was really blown away and I ended up in a meditative state. I listened to 30 minutes worth of it and I was kicking it. And I was actually, when I came out of there, I was like, oh, this is pretty fire. So I'm gonna link it right here. You can really attribute the church for developing a lot of what we know music to be, and it started in the spiritual way with religion, with Gregorian chanting, with hymns and certain sounds that the church was making. And then the evolution of music really took it out of the church into the more classical aspect of what we know music to be. This is where great composers like Bach, Mozart, Chopin, Vivaldi, all these people come from. They start in the church and they take it and they compose their own original works of art, works of music with the principles that the church had given them. Aside from the music that those early composers were making for the church, they were also making music for private investors. They had patrons. Really rich people would pay Mozart and Beethoven and Bach and all these people money and support them financially so that those guys would, one, come and perform at their house, when they're having entertainment or whatever they wanted to entertain their family. Hey, I want to book you for a private show, come to my house and perform. But also, two, they wanted these incredible composers to create original compositions for them. Some of these incredible pieces that we know to be just classic pieces of classical music were actually created by this genius composer for a guy or a rich lady or an aristocrat that just wanted some new music in their house to be played for their family. Go figure, you know? But we see when that shift takes place, where where these incredible musicians and composers and music lovers are separating from the church to do their own thing with the principles they learn from the church, we see where money comes into play. We see where the wealthy start grabbing and getting a hold of what classical music is. I don't know about you, but every time I think of classical music, I think of wealthy people. I think of fancy places, chandeliers, the opera, I think of all these things. And I think the reason that I and a lot of society believe that classical music is something that's exclusive for the wealthy and the elite class is because we always see them paired together. Wealthy people pay these composers to make these really cool pieces of work for them. But now we see the correlation between wealth and classical music because it was something that was exclusive to them at a certain point in time. And also, studies do reveal that they believe that classical music requires a certain level of intellect in order to appreciate it at a high level. So they naturally attribute wealth, classical music, and intellect all bunched together in the same type of thing. So there goes that. And also, someone else did a study where they said the average household income of people who really love country music was like $58,000, and they were at the lowest point of the list. And then the average household income of people who naturally prefer classical music was like $118,000. I'll add a link to that in one of the PDFs below so you can check out those studies for yourself, see if you're even interested in that. But after that, those classical composers, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, they're doing their thing. Then comes, much, much later in history, the advent of popular music. Popular music, we're talking about Elvis Presley, we're talking about the Beatles, we're talking about all these people. And I also think it's really funny how if you look at Elvis or if you look at the Beatles or if you look at any of these early rockers or entertainers or musicians, they also all started in the church. And it's not just saying that the church is just pumping out these stars, but if you are a young kid at any point in time and you don't have money for piano lessons or you don't have money for guitar lessons or singing lessons, people were able to go to the church. The church had instruments and musicians and people that were willing to teach you for free. So the reason why a lot of super successful musicians and entertainers were people who all started in the church was because the church got instruments and the church got people that's going to sing and teach you how to play those instruments for free. So that's where we see the church again adding to the pot of what we know for music to be right now. So that's music. That's just on the music side. And music just continuously evolves. New instruments get created. It goes from classic guitar or classic harp to electric guitar, now to MIDI controllers, and now we just have digital workstations. I'm in a digital studio right now, and we're able to just make whatever we want to make now. But the beautiful part about understanding where music comes from is it gives us the ability to understand where we are in music and where it's going, and also what it does to the body and where it has been associated in history. For example, there was a guy who he would play classical music for his crops, and his crops will grow. He did the study and said, hey, if I play classical music for this crop and not this crop, I find out that this crop grows larger. And then if I switch the classical music to this crop instead of this crop grows larger. So there is a natural correlation between frequency and what the world does and how the world responds to it. For example, cymatics. If you know anything about cymatics, you know that they play a certain frequency and it creates a design inside of sand. I'll actually link a video to that right now. Boom, they play it, They play that sound and it creates a design that's super interesting. But understanding music and frequency is very important because frequencies, we're all made of frequencies. Water is a vibration. All matter around you, every solid thing that you think is solid is actually vibrating. It's made up of really small atoms that are moving around at a really fast rate. They're moving so fast they look solid, but they're not solid. And sound frequency is something that can pass through all of that. So it's really interesting to understand music. Audio learning, for instance, has been used since the beginning of time. Aside from music, the sound frequencies associated with music, pleasing sounds, audio learning, the human voice being able to guide you, is something that has happened since the dawn of time. We spoke about that in the first video. Stories being told around the campfire, people learning from other people. The beautiful part about it is to see the evolution of it. It was all story, person to person. Then the printing press came and changed everything. It also changed everything when it comes to music, but the printing press changed the entire world yet again. When it comes down to audio learning, a great invention took place in 1877. So in 1877, Thomas Edison created the phonograph. The phonograph was the first device ever used that can record the human voice and play it back. That changed the world because now you can record a human voice and play it back, which had never been done before in history, right? Fast forward from 1877 to 1957, a man by the name of Earl Nightingale created an entire industry by himself. It's called learning through listening. Earl Nightingale, 1957, The Strangest Secret. First off, I listened to this. I'm a big fan of Earl Nightingale. But that very first vinyl record that he put out, The Strangest Secret, was the first super popular at the time audio learning series. And people were actually playing this wherever they could playing it for their family, playing it wherever they possibly can. It was also streamed on the radio. And it was allowing people to learn through just listening from someone that they don't know. It wasn't a teacher, it wasn't someone that they actually knew. It was just a cassette that was filled with great information that was allowing people to change their minds by listening to it. And he let you know in the tapes, listen to this over and over and over and over again until it saturates in your body and you become what it is that you want. That was the beginning of audio learning in the United States of America. You have Earl Nightingale, you have Napoleon Hill coming out, you have all these motivators and all these innovators that they would go out, do a motivational speech, and when that speech was done, they would have a cassette or they would have a record series that would just allow you to take what it is that you heard from that seminar home with you. You could play it in your car for your kids, you could play it in your home, you could play it, at your friend's house, you could play it wherever you wanted, but you could also learn at the same time you're chilling. You could learn while you're driving, you can learn while you're cleaning your house, you can learn while you're exercising. And that was revolutionary because before that, in order for you to get any kind of learning, audio learning or otherwise, you had to be in school, in a place where learning was happening, and you had to be fully focused on it. But having the ability to listen and learn while you're listening allowed you to multitask while you learned. For example, me, that's my number one mode of learning right now. Because I live in such a hectic time in America and in the world, we're inundated by so much information on a regular basis. We don't always have the time to sit down and learn something properly. When I say properly, I just mean what used to be known as proper. Sit in a school setting with a blackboard, with a woman in front of you in a class full of people. If that's called proper learning, we don't have the time for that so much. So we have to work, we have to support our friends and family, we have to just continuously move and hustle and grind and earn a lot of money. And so we don't have the time to sit down and dedicate all of our energy to learning this thing. But the beautiful part about audio learning is that it allows you to learn while you're on the go. For example, certain studies say that an audio book activates the same parts of the brain as reading a physical book yourself. So you can sit there, when you read a physical book, you have to read it with your eyes and you have to dedicate time to it, hold it with your hands. A lot of your body is dedicated only to reading while you're reading. I'm a reader, I'm telling you, you can't read and do 1,000 other things. You can't even read and walk without hurting yourself. But when you take that book that's in your hand and turn it into audio form, you can walk, jump, exercise, lift weights, take care of your kids, cook food, and work at the same time. So that's the beauty of audio learning. It opens up a pathway for you to get all the same information in a fraction of the time and also multitask at the same time. It's a super shortcut. I highly recommend everybody to tap in with audio learning, all right, no matter what. Yeah, this video just was about the history of music and audio learning, just so we can know where it comes from. The next video, we're gonna actually talk about what it does to the brain, what it does to the body, and how it can help you in your life. So yeah, I hope you found this video motivational and inspirational and gave you something to think about. But beyond that, Click over to the next video, and we're gonna go into what it actually does to a human being and how we can use it to our advantage. And then the last video in the series, I'm gonna tell you what I think you should be listening to, what I listen to on a regular basis, what I highly recommend you listen to, what I believe will change your life. I actually have that list right here, but I'm gonna wait to the third video. All right, so jump to the next video. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.